Hello, beautiful soul sister, and welcome back to another episode of the Soul Powered Podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Kiger. I'm a trauma-informed master mindset and money coach, as well as a financial expert of over 17 years. I have spent my entire adult life studying the difference between successful and unsuccessful people, and I plan on sharing all of the things with you on this journey together. This podcast is called the Soul Powered Podcast because it's my desire to share with you how to create a life that is powered by your soul, not by societal standards or what everyone else in your life tells you that you should be doing, but actually powered by your soul. The reason you'd want to do this is because I believe that this is the fastest way to unlock your portal to prosperity and become what I call the wildly wealthy woman. This is the portal that once you enter it, you gain access to the prosperity, abundance, wealth, time freedom, experiences, fulfillment that are your birthright. I don't believe that you came here to build someone else's dreams. I believe you came here to live your soul-powered life and live it to the fullest. And I plan on sharing with you exactly how to do that during our time together. So thank you so much for being here. I know we're going to have so much fun together today. Let's dive in. Hello, my love, and welcome back to the Soul Power Podcast. I am so excited to be here with you today. And this is my first solo episode in a little while because we were away on a cruise and we had our family situation going on with our doggy, etc. So today I'm so excited to dive in to this topic that is so freaking important if you want to make more, you want to save more, and you actually want to live more, okay? This is it. Like when I have been asked in the past about what is the main difference between the haves and the have-nots that I've seen in my 20 years experience in helping people reach their financial goals, I will tell you that it's this. It's the very topic that we're going to touch on today. So we're not going to waste any time. We're going to dive straight in. But before we do, I'm just going to give you a couple heads up. Number one, I am drinking my cacao because I slept in a little bit this morning and it felt very self-carey of me to do that. And, since we've gotten back from our cruise on Sunday evening, I've been getting up and having no issues waking up at 6 a.m. Like, even though it's cold and it's dark, I kind of thought I might have, issues with that. Sometimes I do in the wintertime a little bit, just with how dark it is. But I've been getting up, like bouncing out of bed. I'm so excited to be home. I'm so excited to be back podcasting. I'm so excited to be back with you guys. It's real whenever you go away from work and you can't wait to come back to it. Okay. You do what you love whenever that's the case. I can tell you that was not the case for me for most of my adult life. Working in the corporate world, I was like, I cannot even believe that I have to go back to work tomorrow. And, this fantasy life that I was living on vacation was about to end. But that's not how it is anymore for me. I love this feeling of just being able to, nothing changed for me, right? When I came home, it's just now I'm doing something different than I was doing on the cruise. I was waking up and, okay, so I'll tell you guys a little bit about the cruise. It was so much fun. It was me, my daughter, and my husband. And it was an 8-night cruise, a Western Caribbean cruise. So we went to St. Kitts, St. Thomas, St. Martin, and the Bahamas. So Royal Caribbean has their own private island called Coco Cay. So they call it like the perfect day at Coco Cay. And it really was. It was so much fun. My daughter, when we got home, she started bawling her eyes out as we were walking in the door. Now, this would be different if my kid was like 4, but no, she's 19 and she started crying her eyes out because it was -2 degrees Fahrenheit when we got home. And obviously it was much, much warmer on the islands. I will say though, Florida was cold. Like, so if you live here in the US, which I know many of you do, and I've got lots of you living all over the world, which I love. It's so much fun. But here in the US, at least, there has been this like massive cold front, at least on the east side of the US. And it's been cold and snowing in places that has not happened in like multiple decades. It was snowing in Florida. Like it was cold when we went there. So we were about almost as far south as you can go. We sailed out of Fort Lauderdale, and then it was actually like 65 degrees to 70 degrees Fahrenheit there, which me and my daughter pack for tropical weather. Okay, guys. So I will say that so we flew down a day before because we did not want to go down same day as the cruise. I've seen too many horror stories of that with flights being delayed, especially with the weather. So we went down the night before. We got a hotel on the beach. Okay, first of all, false advertising is a thing, okay? Because I thought this was going to be like this beautiful, luxurious hotel. And we get there and it's like they're doing construction inside of the hotel, like in the lobby. And it looks like pretty run down because they're doing all this construction. There's dirt everywhere. And they've got these huge machines and it's like, and they're backing up and moving around. And I'm like, this is terrible. So I was already exhausted because the only direct flight that there was like we had to get up at 3:30 in the morning and be at the airport by a 5:30 flight. So yeah, it was a whole thing getting down there and then it was cold. But I will say we got to walk around on the boardwalk and the beach there and get a couple sweaters, get a couple like jacket type of things that we could take on the cruise. So for about the first day and a half, I would say, of us being on the cruise, it was a little chillier than we'd like. So we just kind of stayed, a little bit. It wasn't like freezing, It was, I mean, not here in Pittsburgh, right? It was probably like 70 degrees, but when you're on the water and you're going, there's always a breeze. So I would say it was a little chillier than we would have liked. And then it like, we got far enough south that it was like really hot. And so second day in or third day in, I guess, on the cruise, it was you know, blazing hot, and then all the islands were hot, and it was incredible. But actually, okay, so St. Thomas, I think it was like raining a little bit and windy, and we were supposed to go scuba diving, which I've never done before. So they had this really cool thing called Discover Scuba at this one island that my husband's certified to scuba dive because he's been doing this stuff since he was a kid, but I didn't really start traveling till I was an adult because, we didn't have any money growing up. So I never I wasn't well traveled and not well explored. And yeah, my husband is a lot further along with those kinds of like normal things that people do who have any extra money, which we didn't. But he and his friend years ago went and did this like discover scuba thing where you can scuba dive. You could take a little crash course on the beach and then you scuba dive out right from there instead of like going out into open water. So we were gonna try it. And me and my daughter were gonna get to like scuba a little bit, and then that did get canceled because it was really windy and it was raining and it just wasn't a good vibe for that unless you were experienced. So one of the islands was a little bit chilly, but then it warmed up throughout the day and I actually genuinely wasn't even mad about it because I don't know about you, but I don't like being in, oh sorry, I've got like a hair in my mouth here. I don't like being in either extreme weather. Like I don't like it to be so hot that I can't escape the heat, or the humidity's so high that like I'm dying of, I've got to be like near a body of water or I'm gonna like sweat to death. But then I also don't like how it is right now, where it's like negative degrees. It's starting to warm up today. I'm seeing the sun out. We're okay, but I don't like the extremes. Kind of give me like 75, 80 degrees and sunny, and I am like, I will live here for the rest of my life. So that's a little bit about the cruise, and some of you have been asking about our doggy. So before we dive into today's topic, I'll just give you guys a quick update on that. We did have to choose to put our sweet girl Ellie down before we left. We exhausted every single option that we possibly could in terms of trying to find her a home, trying to find her somewhere that she could go with her dog aggression. And I can't even tell you, I lost count of all of the rescues and all of the emails and all of the calls and all of the things that we've put out there and all the people that we talked to before we had to make that really, really tough decision. And I'm not gonna lie, it's been a journey. It's been really hard. So even though you can't see him right now, my other doggy is laying right here on one of my benches in my office. And he's a little bit sad. You can tell that he feels the absence of her presence, even though for those of you who don't know exactly what happened, you can go back and listen a few episodes ago. I think it was the one that I talked about the bending of the spoon and how that all kind of tied in. But my sweet girl Ellie, my girl dog that we adopted probably 6 years ago or so, became more and more dog aggressive as we had her. And it started out just with other people's dogs, not just with other people's dogs, but like I can manage that, right? I can keep her on a leash. I can keep her secure if it's just other people's dogs, right? Because I can manage that. I'm a responsible dog owner, and I can deal with that if I just need to make sure that, she doesn't go near the front door if there's a dog walking by, or I'm going out and getting the groceries, or, any like things like that. I can manage, even though it was very stressful. But then it started happening within the home and with our other dog, and she attacked him and he almost died. So we had to make a decision as to, okay, this is something that we're not going to be able to continue to have happen in the home. We did reach out, we did get training, we did reach out to one of Eric's childhood, friends who does canine training. And, we exhausted all options before we had to make that really, really difficult decision. So yeah, it's something that I share in knowing that, people, I'm sure, will have their judgments about it. It's something that I share vulnerably because sometimes hard things happen and we have to make hard decisions. And I didn't think that I could live through it. I really didn't. I've never lost anyone. I'm gonna knock on wood here. And Zeno thinks someone's knocking at the door. No one's knocking, buddy. But if you do hear him barking or whining or doing any of the things, just know like he's literally sitting here, and that's okay. We can certainly edit it out if there's anything too interruptive. But yeah, it was such a difficult decision, and I really feel as though I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. And one of the things that I realized, and I believe in like soul contracts, I believe in the fact that we made the decision to come here before we ever did. I believe that you have a soul. I believe that, you have a purpose on this earth. And I think that what I've come to realize through some dreams and some downloads and some meditations is that me and my sweet girl Ellie, we made this contract together before we came here. And I know it might sound crazy, and there's a part of me that's like, that sounds a little nuts. And do you actually believe that? And I don't know, but it makes my heart feel at least a bit warmer about the scenario and the situation to know that, maybe we made this decision that this was the way that it was going to work. And she was here to teach me a lot of lessons and teach me about unconditional love and teach me about healing. And also the fact that, which leads us into today's conversation about how, yeah, you can heal and things can get better. But, if you're still such a triggered person, like my dog had trauma, the poor girl, like when we rescued her, she, she was found in the woods. So like someone found her in the woods, literally living alone by herself, and they rehabbed her, took her into, some sort of facility here in Pittsburgh, and then rehabbed her enough to foster her out. Now, when we got her and we adopted her, she was living in a home with four other dogs. So, like, we had absolutely no idea or indication that she was going to be dog aggressive. But my point is with this is it's not that far off from a human. If you think about your triggers and your traumas and the way that you show up in life, really such a huge lesson that I learned from my experience with Ellie is that, I mean, unfortunately, there's no like dog therapy. Like she couldn't go and like hire a coach or like, we tried to do as much as we could, but obviously, dogs are different. But that, you can experience all of these triggers and you can heal from them. She went from a very, very scared dog. She was afraid to be on her back and let us rub her belly to, afraid of humans and ducking all of the time and just very scared, very timid, very shy, very depressed when we first got her, to this happy-go-lucky, amazing, sweet girl who let us put her on her back and rub her belly and blow raspberries on her and all of the things. But she never lost that aggression. She never lost that trigger. Something flipped. There was a switch that flipped when she would see another dog or whatever happened between, her and Zeno here. There was a trigger that was too heavy. It was too much. It was dangerous at that point. And I kind of liken it to, just to again try to paint some parallels here. I kind of liken it to my relationships in the past where I've been in abusive relationships, physically abusive relationships in the past where I've been with men who, yeah, like they say they love me and they might treat me well for, the majority of the time. But if every once in a while, and it's still only every once in a while, they beat the living crap out of me, like that's still not a good relationship, right? Like whatever that trigger is, and those are the things that I used to look past. I don't know if you have ever experienced this, but for someone who is, you know, a recovering people pleaser and someone who always wanted to see the best in people, I would look past those things. And I would say, well, 90% of the time he's such a good guy. And like I know he has so much potential and I know he could be so great, but like he beats me, you know? And it's one of those situations where I felt that it was similar with Ellie. Like she's such an incredible dog, but she tries to kill other people's dogs anytime she can. And that's not a safe environment for anyone, right? Especially other dogs in the neighborhood or even my other dog now. And so it got me thinking about this idea of healing and how important it is. Because if you really think about it, like, and it's a little bit of a tangent here, but I really think that there's something here for us. I'm definitely going to tie it all back together with what our topic of today's conversation is, but I think that it's important for us to never give up on this healing, because I look at my own triggers and the way that I show up in my own life, and I think about it differently now. And I'm like, okay, well, before, especially well before I started all of this healing journey, before I started all of these things, I was very easily triggered. I was a walking panic attack, always in fight or flight, always in defensive mode, and I thought, man, no matter how much healing we do, if we still allow our triggers to, even if it's like 10% of the time, to flare up to the point where we're hurtful to other people in a really significant way, or we make poor decisions with our finances because we're in this triggered state, and we do these things even though we know that we don't want to, and that's not preferable for where we're moving forward. That still can be enough to like push people away and to create catastrophes. And that's what I learned with Ellie is like, I'm never going to stop this healing because I don't want it to be like, oh, she was great, 90% of the time. But man, those 10% times she was crazy, or, she was very hurtful, or she was mean, or she made really bad decisions, and, she self-sabotaged in those, 10% of the time. And so it brings me to our conversation today around what this most important topic. This is like really the differentiator between, again, as I said earlier, people have asked me through the years, like, what's the difference, right? What's the difference between the people who have it all? What's the difference between the people who have way more than enough, way more, abundance and overflow, and they can do the things that they want, and they don't have to think about money versus those who are living paycheck to paycheck or are always stressing about money, no matter how much they have or how much they make, and aren't able to go and live the fully fulfilled life that they want to live. Like what's the core difference? And I will say that the most important piece of getting to the place that you want to be, to that place of overflow and abundance, is your relationship to money. Your relationship to money is the very foundation of whatever it is that you're going to build within your house of wealth, let's call it, right? So if you're going to try to break generational cycles and you want to go and make a ton of money and you want to live a life of, you know, abundance, and you want to live a life of overflow and experience and travel and not being glued to your desk and having this, either 9 to 5 situation, or your business owns you because you don't feel like you can walk away from it. We have to understand, you've got to understand how to rewire your relationship towards money to that of an abundance relationship versus one of scarcity. You have to understand that, because people think this is a strategy thing. People think if I just go out and I just work harder, or I find that next new strategy, that one thing that's going to, catapult everything for me, or I find this type of investment, or I hit the lottery, I have one successful, go from zero to $1 million in my business, everything's going to change. And I can tell you, I mean, guys, at this point, it's 2 decades of stories that I could share, where I'm telling you right now, and I'll share some for proof purposes here, but it's not going to change a freaking thing if you don't change your relationship to money. It's not. There was a woman that I saw years ago who had more money saved She was very, very frugal. Her parents went through the Great Depression. She's much older than we are, most of the people who listen to this. And she had more money than she would ever even possibly spend. She was getting ready to retire. And I'm telling you that this woman was the most scarce, fearful, afraid person I've ever met in my life as it relates to money. This is why it's so like sticks out in my mind because I'm like, okay, your expenses are, and I can't give away too many details, obviously, for privacy purposes, but her expenses on a monthly basis were so freaking low that because she was afraid to spend money, that her pension was like covering covering these expenses plus like probably 3 to 5 times that. Okay. So she was saving in retirement, which most people don't, by the way. Most people get to retirement and okay, we have like, which pensions are a thing of the past, at least here in the US. Like corporations don't really offer that anymore. Now you've got to fund your own retirement through the 401k. Or IRAs, things like that. Or if you're an entrepreneur, you're doing SEP IRAs, things like that. But for that generation, they were able to rely on pensions, Social Security. And so typically, when I'm meeting with someone who wants to do retirement planning, we've got the pension, maybe, and Social Security or just Social Security. And then we have their nest egg. And a lot of times, maybe their bills, let's call it, I don't know, let's just use round numbers and say that their expenses are $10,000 a month and they have $5,000 a month in income between their Social Security and pension. Well, we've got to take their nest egg in their investments and we've got to find a way to bridge that gap. We've got to get them to the other 5,000. Now, that's kind of an extreme case. That's not very typical for where like I'm living. That there are some people who are in that category, but not all. Most people's expenses are low. So in her case, her expenses were much lower than that. And there was no gap in her income. I mean, she had more than enough income to last for the rest of her life, plus multi 7 figures. Let's put it that way, saved because she saved every freaking dime and invested from a very young age. And when I tell you that, the fear, she had so much fear to retire because she didn't think that she would be able to make it. She didn't think that she would have enough money. And like it was such a massive disconnect that it was hard for me to grasp in my head. I've seen people have a disconnect in finances, meaning when I'm talking about disconnect, it's like, here's the reality, but here's how I feel about it. And those are disconnects, meaning like I have more than enough. And I spent a lot of time here too. And you may experience that in your own life where it's like, I'm not living paycheck to paycheck anymore. I have more than enough. I have the things that I need. I have a roof over my head, but I still feel like I'm one, bad decision away from homelessness. Okay. So like that's what I'm talking about with the disconnect. But it was really hard for me to even wrap my head around this disconnect that she had. And it wasn't something that I was actually even willing to take on as a client because it was so delusional that I almost felt like something's wrong here. Something's off. Like this isn't something that even I'm willing to take on because my reputation is on the line. And at this stage in my career, I don't want to work with someone who is going to be calling me every 5 minutes, asking me, you know, if they lost $5 in their account or like the market goes up and down, it does. I don't want to be working with people who are that scarce around money and that afraid to lose anything because it's just not my vibe. There's tried and true ways of making money over time and historically speaking they work. Does it work every single day? Are you making money every single day? No. But the same thing goes with real estate, right? When you buy a house, it's like, yeah, sometimes the value's up, sometimes it's down, but you don't freak out every time the market, shifts when you have a house. It's like, okay, well, nothing matters until I go to sell it. So what am I going to freak out every day that, my house is only worth X? It's like, who cares? So, anyways, my point with all of this is that watching that individual stress and the amount of stress, the amount of time that she spent talking about money, thinking about money, stressing about money, it just didn't really make any sense to me. And that's kind of really when it clicked for me that, holy shit, now in her case, she did have more than enough. She did have enough to go and live the life that she wanted, but she was so unfulfilled and so afraid that she was going to lose it all that she didn't even live her life to the fullest anyway. Like she didn't even have any kids to leave this money to. She was never going to spend this money ever, never, ever, ever, ever. And yet she spent all of her time focused on the fact that she was so afraid that she was going to lose it all. And I use this example, and I have many, many more through the years, but I use this example particularly because it can happen on both ends of the spectrum. Now, of course, I've seen people on the other side where there's one guy in particular. So another example of this, and I'm going to go into how this might be showing up for you, but just kind of see where you can see maybe some parallels here. These are extreme examples, and then we'll see where you might fall in the middle. But I have another guy that I'm thinking of specifically who, he was maxed out on every freaking credit card that he could possibly have. He was maxed out on his home equity loan and lines of credit, and he spent all of his time gambling. So he would literally come in with his paycheck every other week. He would deposit his paycheck. He would pay off or take that paycheck and pay down, not pay off, pay down his home equity line of credit. That was max the freak out. So let's say it was a $100,000 line of credit. And if you don't know what a home equity line of credit is, it kind of works like a credit card where, let's say you have a $100,000 line of credit that you can spend on whatever you want, but you're using your house as collateral, meaning that if you don't pay that back, they can take your shit. Like they can take your house. So and then typically you can get a much higher credit limit because it's based on the equity that you have in your house, not like a credit card, which is unsecured, meaning if you don't pay that off and you file for bankruptcy, that credit card company is just screwed. They're not getting their money back and they can't take your home for that. This is not financial advice, by the way. I'm not allowed to give that in a blanket way like this, just kind of giving you some overall understanding of how this works. So in this case, he would come in and say I don't remember how much the line of credit was, but say it was $100,000. He literally had spent $99,950 of it. So he had like $50 available. He would bring his entire paycheck in, pay, let's say it was $1,000 towards the line of credit. There would be some interest in there that he would have to pay. So he would literally go in and take back out that $1,000 minus any interest right back off of the line of credit, and he would go down to the casino and spend it. So I'm sharing these things with you because these are two examples of some really poor relationships towards money. And they're examples of people who have two very different scenarios. Again, the extremes, right? Which I don't like extremes. I told you earlier, even with like as it relates to temperature, but I think it's important to open up the conversation because it's crucial to see that you can be on one end of the spectrum or the other or anywhere in between. So why you would want to have a really powerful relationship with money is because you can end up in that middle ground somewhere, right? Let's say that you are let's say my mentor, James Wedmore. He talks a lot about this publicly, so I can share his scenario publicly. But James, makes, I want to say he says it's now like 13, maybe 13, 12 to $13 million a year. Every year he has a business where, there's a very high profit margin there. He's living his best life, but he's taking a salary, and he again shared this publicly, taking a salary of probably $10,000 to $20,000 a month. I mean, it's not like he's living on millions, because he's living the lifestyle that he wants to live, and that's enough to do that. But he has a very neutral relationship with money. I've spent a lot of time around James as of late. We actually got to go to dinner with James in Sedona. It was a really small group of us, probably 8 of us after BBD Live, which was really, really awesome. And so I just got to see how, there's very little attachment to money there, meaning money, how much or how little doesn't determine how he's going to live his life or the way that he feels about himself. And so that's kind of like that middle ground of being able to know that money is a tool, money is a resource. And the more that I have stepped into this neutrality as well around money, because I had a whole hell of a lot that I had to uncover and heal as it related to money. I think probably more so than the majority of people that I've seen. I've kind of fallen into that category of really having some deep levels of trauma around money based on the way that I grew up. And so I think for some of us, it might be a little bit more, there's just more to it. That's the end of it. Like people say that, we can just manifest things really, really quickly. And I do believe that we can. But again, if we don't address the relationship to it, if we don't address how our nervous system feels around it, if we don't make money safe to the nervous system, it's going to be really difficult to withstand and maintain whatever it is that you're bringing into your life. So I think it's important to touch on these extremes, and let's talk about how this relationship with money works. So as it relates to money specifically, you can, depending on how you were raised, you can have different attachment styles around money. And I've talked a little bit about this on previous episodes, but I really want to go deeper into this because I think it's a really common thing that I've been asked as of late. I've been a guest on quite a bit of podcasts this first quarter of the year. Actually, this first month, it's only January. But one of the things that I've been asked about is this relationship towards money and how it actually shows up. So if you grew up, which I think many of my listeners have not, which is why you're here, but that's okay. If you did grow up this way, my husband did a little bit more than me. So, or a lot more than me. I don't know why I said a little bit. So let's say that you grew up in a scenario where money was just a normal topic that you guys talked about. There wasn't a lot of scarcity around it. Your parents had like stable jobs. Let's say you had a two-family, two-parent home, and there was not a lot of fear or scarcity around money. You got what you needed, your needs were taken care of. Nobody really talked about money, or they talked about it in a empowering way, meaning they taught you how to invest, they taught you how to save. It was something that was a positive thing. Then you are more likely to grow up and have what is called a secure attachment style around money. Now, the nervous system is where all of this information is stored. Okay, so that's why I talk so much about regulating the nervous system and healing the nervous system and making money safe to the nervous system. So for someone like that, that's awesome because you're going to be far ahead of those of us who were the opposite. And so you're not going to have as much that you need to uncover and rewire, and your relationship with money is kind of going to be like, hey, I was programmed with a pretty positive relationship with money, so I don't feel all of this scarcity or unworthiness. These are kind of those people who you just watch like take off really quickly, and they go out and they make a ton of money, and you're just like everything they touch turns to gold. Like from a very young age, they're just business savvy, and it's like that's fucking awesome for them. And like I really wish that, I could have been that way, right? I used to have those thoughts a lot. So that explains our secure attachment style. The opposite of that is our insecure attachment style. So if you grew up like me, and there's different layers to this one, so I'll go into this, where maybe money was scarce. Maybe money was very scarce. Maybe you grew up below the poverty line. Maybe you were homeless. I have some people in my world now who, they actually did experience homelessness a few times in their lives. Or there was a lot of chaos, a lot of fights, a lot of stress around money. Maybe there was divorce. So maybe things were really, really good when you were young and then your parents got divorced and things turned south, right? And now mom's gotta, go back to work or whatever it is. That's a very common one. Let's see, what's another, like job loss. That's another common one that can create an insecure attachment style. So like one of your parents lost their job and things were good at once and then they weren't, or your parents mismanaged money and maybe one of your parents had an insecure attachment style and the other one was secure. So you kind of got a little bit of both. You saw like good habits, but then you saw the other one having bad habits, or there was secrecy around money. So there's a lot of ways that this shows up. But this can create what's called an insecure attachment style around money. And this is something that I really want to personify because I think this is what really allows it to land for people. Let's say, for instance, that my husband, okay, our relationship right now is a very secure relationship. So I'm very securely attached to my husband, meaning when he comes home, I can, love on him and give him a hug and then let him go and do his own thing. And he can go to the shower and he can go out with his friends and he can go and do whatever he needs to do. And I'm completely like trusting that he's going to come home when he says he is. We have a very, very secure and balanced relationship. But on the other side of that, let's say, okay, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the couple insecure attachment styles and how it would show up in an actual, physical relationship. So let's say that my husband comes in the house and I don't want to even look in his direction. I find him to be very stressful to deal with. I don't want to be bothered with him. Every time he says something to me, I'm just like, I don't really want to deal with you. You're a lot. I don't even want to look at you, don't want to handle you. Anytime you ask me to go do something, I'm like, no. That's kind of the equivalent of what people with one type of this is called the avoidant attachment style around money show up around money. So this is the equivalent to not wanting to open your bank account, not wanting to pay your bills when they come in, or freaking out whenever a bill comes in, or getting all stressed out every time that, or not managing your money, or not knowing how many subscriptions are coming out. Like things like that are indicators that there's an avoidance there. And this stems from, again, childhood, lots of things behind it. It's a safety and protection mechanism to avoid the pain, avoid the hard things. Okay. And this is primarily what I work on, obviously with my clients, helping them heal from. And we'll talk more about that too, because I have something exciting to share with that. But let's go to the other attachment style first. So um, let's say my husband walks in the door and comes home from work, and I am like attached at his hip. Okay, I'm imagining like a kid like grabbing onto their dad's leg. Like I'm just like, you can't go anywhere. Where are you going? When are you coming back? How long are you going to be gone? Who's all going? What's going on? When are you coming back? Are you sure you're coming back? I don't know if you're going to come back, so I'm just going to keep you. Why don't you just stay here? And I just try to convince him to stay, right? That is indicative of more of an anxious attachment style. And this is the equivalent to that in as it relates to money is when people are so freaking afraid to spend it that because if I don't know 100% that this money is going to come back to me tenfold, I'm not spending this money. It's like money is my sense of security. That's an anxious attachment style. And then, depending on the level of trauma that you experience, the level of things that happened, or just even your experience in general, like I said, maybe one parent had good habits around money and the other didn't, or just good habits in general. This doesn't always have to be around money. Then you can end up with what is called the disorganized attachment style. It's named different things depending on who you're learning from, but let's go with disorganized, which means sometimes you're anxious, sometimes you're avoidant. So sometimes you want to, this was me, by the way. Sometimes you are incredibly anxious about every single dime that you spend, and then you go like weeks or months without looking at your bank account, or days at least. So that's the insecure, or I'm sorry, that's the disorganized attachment style. So that would be the same with me and my husband is like sometimes I'm ignoring the crap out of him, and then other times I'm anxious every time he's walking out of the room and he's just like, I don't know what's going on here. In any of those insecure attachment styles, how great of a relationship is it going to be with my husband? It's not, right? He's going to be like, what the hell is happening here? And probably it's going to be a short-lived relationship if I don't get the help that I need. Which, by the way, my husband is the most patient man in the world and helped me through my disorganized attachment style. And so I did show up in some of those ways with my husband in the beginning, maybe not that extreme to where I didn't want to look in his direction or things like that, but I did have a disorganized attachment style. And so, this is something that you can heal. It's not something that is you're stuck with or anything like that. It's really just to bring some awareness to maybe some protective patterns that you have going on that are keeping you stuck and small around money. When I talk about personifying this, I really love to look at money as though it's just another relationship in your life. If you think about any other relationship, if you're showing up in these disempowered ways and you don't want to look at that person, or maybe you're anxious every time that person leaves, how great of a relationship is it going to be? And so, how much time is that person going to want to spend around you? I.e., how much time is money going to want to spend in your presence? I truly believe that everything is energy and money is energy just the same. So, if we're matching the frequency, it's kind of like we're bridging that gap because I know a lot of people talk about manifestation and frequency and quantum physics and all of those things, but it's like, how do we make it tangible so that we can understand how those high level kind of 3D concepts really do impact our relationship with money? And this is how it is. This is how it works. I would even say that from the studies that I've had, that I believe, so you've heard this concept of like a dominant vibration around money, possibly. If you haven't, I want to say it was like Esther Hicks and Abraham Hicks who kind of coined that term, that dominant vibration. But essentially, we learn through quantum physics and manifestation that we attract things to us that are equal to our dominant vibration. So if your dominant vibration is that there of abundance, you're going to attract abundance. If you have a high vibrational dominant vibration, then you're going to attract high vibrational things. Okay? If you have a low dominant vibration, you're going to attract low vibrational things. Now, money has a certain frequency, right? That it vibrates at. So as long as you are at that frequency, vibrating at that frequency, then you're going to be able to attract it. But what does that mean? Like, what the fuck does that actually mean? Well, I believe the more that I study this work and the more that I understand the connectedness with the human body and how we are all connected to the quantum field, there's a lot of evidence that shows that our nervous system is responsible for that frequency piece. So if your physical body is afraid to bring on more money, meaning you're showing up in these patterns in these ways where every single time, you go to open your bank account, you're afraid, or every single time money leaves, you're scared and you're putting out this frequency of scarcity all the fucking time. No wonder why your experience is the way that it is. Or maybe you're like my client, or she never became a client of mine, but the woman I was talking about earlier, where everything on the surface looks great. You have the white picket fence house, you have the business, you have the income, you have the relationships, but you feel empty inside. That's the dominant vibration that you're putting out there, and you think money or something external is going to resolve that, and it's not. It's simply not. Right? We get in life, so you get in life a reflection of who it is that you are, not what it is that you want. You get in life a reflection of who it is that you are, not what it is that you want. And so a really good way to determine where is my dominant vibration set is to look around you, to see what you have manifested, what you have in your life is gonna be the indicator of where your dominant vibration is set, period. And that is so empowering, even if it's not what you want it to be. Even if you're in a place where you don't like your financial situation right now and you want to change it, it's still fucking empowering to be able to say, oh, I'm the one in charge. All I have to do is shift my vibration. All I need to do is heal my relationship with money. All I need to do is to create a secure attachment style around money so that I can then project the frequency of abundance out there and then receive it back. Simple, but not easy. And so when I say it that way, yeah, it's like, oh, all I need to do is this, right? But what does that all entail? There's a lot of layers to this, okay? And take it from me, I've been doing this work for a really long time. There's a lot of layers to this. And so when we look at rewiring our relationship with money, expanding our nervous system's capacity to receive, how do we do it? Well, essentially, number one, we have to become aware, right? So this is the work that I do with my clients. This is the work that we do. We've got to become aware of the triggers, the patterns, the protective patterns, the limiting beliefs, the money story that you currently have before we can ever move into letting it go. And this is a process that takes some time. And so it's the work that I do inside of my Aligned Money program. But I told you earlier, I have something exciting to share. And so if you have been on the fence and maybe not ready to commit to healing your money journey or working with a coach or anything like that quite yet, or you haven't, wanted to or couldn't afford it for whatever reason, you weren't able to do this, I have something exciting for you. So I am actually, for the first time ever, launching a beta program that is a 6-week program that will help you to expand your nervous system's capacity to receive good things so that you can make more, save more, and actually live more. And I'm so freaking excited about this. I am limiting this to only a certain amount of women. This is going to be a standalone program in the future that won't have any support with me. But this very first time I'm launching it, you're going to have support with me. You're going to have coaching calls. You're going to have me holding your hand the whole 6 weeks to be able to rewire your relationship with money. So the best part about this is I literally have, it's going to be the lowest investment that it will ever be with the highest touch point, the highest support, live support this round. I'm not going to have that in future rounds. And there's 100% money back guarantee. Okay. So if you want to learn all of the details, hop on the wait list because it's those of you guys who are on the wait list that are going to have first dibs. And I'm literally opening this up to like a handful of women because I want this to be intimate, because I really want to be able to get you the support that you need in this. It's kind of a very nuanced thing. It's going, your protective patterns and the way that you show up around money is going to be different than others. And so that's what I have in mind for this program. And it's going to be called Expand. And you guys, like, I don't know if I've ever been more excited. I think I was this excited when I first launched Align Money, but I am so excited. This is really going to be kind of that bridging of the gap for those who aren't quite ready to step into a higher level container. Because my Align Money program, it's a minimum 6-month commitment. Most women are in there for at least a year, and it is a higher level investment at a higher level commitment. We have bi-weekly calls in there where you get coaching and support, and you have a whole content library. I call it the cosmic content library, where you're diving in and we're doing alignment hours all of the time and bringing in guest experts. And like, that's like the whole thing, right? Like that's the all-inclusive resort. Okay. And then all of my free content is kind of your taste test and your appetizers, right? My podcast, that's all like, hey, here's a glimpse of what it is that I do. Here's how I can help you in a free way. And then the expand program is going to be right in between for those who are wanting to like dive their feet in and get a really fast result within 6 weeks, but don't necessarily want to commit to the 6 months yet, or just aren't ready to do that yet. And you want to get some fast results. It is literally going to be a no-brainer investment. I actually feel like I'm giving this away at this point, which I'm kind of excited about because it releases a lot of the attachment for me. And it's just like, I'm just doing this because I really, really, really want to do it. But I'm not going to give it all away for free because I also believe in energetic exchange. And I believe that people pay attention to things that they pay for. So if I do it for free, then people aren't, seeing the value the same way. So it's kind of like a really cool in between there. So if you want to learn more, hop on the wait list and I will be sending out the information via email. But let me know how I can support you. Let me know what in this episode and this conversation stood out for you. Do you feel like you have a secure or an insecure attachment style around money? And if you have the insecure, which one did you resonate with most? Was it the avoidant that doesn't want to, look at their bank account, doesn't want to look at bills, kind of lets bills pile up and doesn't pay taxes, or, just like I had a girl the other day who, she's making seven figures, but she would leave her bills pile up and not pay them for like she couldn't even understand why. She's like, I have the money. Like, I don't even know why I do that. That's related to the avoidant attachment style. Or maybe the anxious, where you're so afraid to spend. It's like hoarding and saving and keeping all of this money is going to be your way to financial success. Neither of those things lead to true and lasting wealth, I will say that, especially not wealth from the inside out, which I think is really what most of us are going for with true fulfillment. Because again, that woman earlier that we talked about with, the multi seven figure nest egg, she had financial abundance, but definitely didn't feel as though she had financial abundance. So I think it's a both and. I would much rather be in a place where I also feel abundant, that I don't have to stress all the time. I'm not in fight or flight, I'm regulated, I feel good. There's many reasons why, right? Stress is the root of so much in terms of illness. I mean, the consequences of not healing this stuff is like absolutely insane, and I just think that we have to start looking at this and looking at it from a holistic approach. Or do you, resonate with the disorganized attachment style where you have a little bit of both? That one, we've got a little bit more to work on because we have to heal both sides of it, but you're in the right place and you have the right person to do it because I walked through that myself and I've developed a process that is proven to be able to do it. So if you want to learn more about Expand, I would love to have you inside of the program. Once the spots are gone, they are gone, but I'm looking for some founding members who really want to sprint to a new reality, a new paradigm. Just like imagine waking up 6 weeks from now or 6 weeks from when we launch, to waking up to a brand new sense of ease and overflow around money and this neutrality that you get to have instead of being attached and anxious and afraid all of the time, right? This really opens up your magnetism. It resets your dominant vibration to that of abundance, and things become so much easier than they ever have before. I can tell you sitting here today, like being on that trip and having 10 full days. I didn't even have service. I didn't even get the Wi-Fi package because I didn't want to talk to anyone. I wanted to disconnect and no one needed anything from me. No one. I still was receiving I was receiving money while I was away consistently. I was not being emailed by anyone. No one needed anything from me. I got to go away for 10 full days. And that was really cool because I think that was like the longest time that I've been without service. And my virtual assistants like are posting for me. All of my stuff is still getting done. My podcast is still going out. And for the first time I looked up and I'm like, I can fully be present here. I can fully be present with no service. That was not how I used to live, by the way. I was so overbearing and controlling of over every little thing. I was afraid to even go to our cabin for a weekend because I thought my business was going to fall apart. Meanwhile, here I'm sitting here like I got to be fully with my daughter, with my husband as we were navigating this really stressful time in our lives. We got to spend that time together. We got to reconnect as a family. It was absolutely incredible. And that's a life that I want to have for every single person that listens to this. If you come into my world, my whole goal is to make your life better as a result of knowing me. And I hope that I've done that for you. So if I have, screenshot this episode, post it on social media, tag me on Instagram, let me know what resonated with you, shoot me a DM. I love to hear from you guys. I seriously do, because it really shows me that this work is important. This work is helping you. And the more that I get confirmation of that, the more that I'm able to show up with more of these kinds of things that resonate. So thank you for those of you that do reach out. If you rate this podcast, and I'm giving you like a whole bunch of calls to action right now, but like if you rate this podcast, it does help it to get into the hands of more people. So it would mean the world to me. So let me know what resonated with you. You can do that through screenshotting and sharing on IG or just rating below. I appreciate you all for being here. And I really, really hope this resonated with you, and I hope that it helps. So thank you for spending your time with me. I never take it for granted. I adore each and every one of you, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode. We'll talk to you then. Bye. Soul Sister, thank you so much for tuning in to this entire episode today. If you enjoyed this episode, would you do me a favor and leave a quick review? This allows me to reach more people, and if you found value, I know others in your life will too. Also, be sure to share this episode on social media along with your biggest takeaways so I know what resonates most with you and I can keep the good stuff coming. And if you're looking to dive into a deeper connection than this podcast will allow, consider checking out my Rise to Riches experience in the show notes below. I would love to hear how these messages have helped you take one step closer to living your soul-powered life and becoming the wildly wealthy woman. Sis, let's continue to rise together. I'll see you next time. Bye.